Hi, I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman, neurosurgeon for 41 years, but I'm only 39 years old. Tonight, we have a great subject here. You know I'm a Dr. Wellness. I'm trying to teach wellness to my patients and to our audience through a number of DVDs and tapes we've already done. Tonight I have with me Brian Carpenter, a personal trainer and a fitness coach. And he's going to give some presentation tonight also. I'll just begin by telling you a little bit about what our Mind Body Institute is all about that we have at Lutheran Hospital, where we're trying to bring wellness to the community. What I would like you to do, frankly, is to live to be 100 and to be of sound mind. That's really my main goal. But how are we going to accomplish that? And we teach stress and exercise and the foods to eat. We give diet classes. It's a really combination of things. But exercise really is about 30 to 50% of wellness. It varies from illness to illness. To prevent certain illnesses, exercise is quite important. Let's kind of start with the human brain. Exercising regularly helps avoid anxiety, depression, mental illness. Something to keep in mind that many people believe today, and I do, that a 30-minute walk is as good as taking a Prozac. How about that? Instead of taking some medication. We all need to walk 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes a day, and we're going to bring that up many times in this discussion. Also, exercise is more important for human intelligence to keep our memory, for example. It is 4 times more important to the brain than the body. Would you believe that? Why is that? Because it increases vascular growth, more blood vessels. It helps our neurotransmitters. We have 70 trillion neurotransmitters in the brain that make the darn thing work. Exercise increases the number. Also, it causes secretion of trophic factors that cause our brain cells to grow at any age, even when we are older. Exercise has tremendous benefits to the elder, even as high as 80 or 90. They become more intelligent, they avoid dementia, they live longer. And as we get down the body, of course, exercise, we all know, is extremely important for cardiovascular fitness. It increases the size of our heart. They thought 100 years ago that having a large heart was all bad. It's not true. You want to enlarge it a little bit because you have a bigger muscle. Your stroke volume increases, your heart rate goes down, your heart doesn't work as hard. So cardiovascular fitness is extremely important just to remain well to begin with. Now, if you happen to have a heart attack, it is extremely important to partake in cardiovascular fitness for the first 6 weeks under the care of a cardiologist and a rehab doctor at your local hospital or close to a hospital, because they'll have you hooked to monitors and things, because it's a little bit risky 6 weeks after you had a heart attack. They have found, though, that only 50% of the patients who've had a cardiac event participate in it. And that's indeed is a problem. If you want to live a normal, long life, which you still can, Dean Ornish in his work has published heart disease is stoppable, preventable, and reversible through proper exercise, relaxation techniques, and eating the proper food, of course, which we teach. Also, pulmonary conditions. If you have COPD, you have problems with your lungs, or any lung condition, asthma, for example, has been found to have a great response to exercise. We can lengthen if you can walk only half a block now through regular exercise, you can be taught through pulmonary rehab to increase your distance tremendously. As you go down the body further, also GI diseases, irritable bowel, for example, inflammatory bowel disease has been scientifically proven that these patients can be tremendously improved with exercise. We have 400 million brain cells in our gut. A guy wrote a book called The Second Brain by Gershon. Yes, so how we think the exercise has tremendous influence on GI diseases. Cancer occurs, of course, significantly in the lungs in the gastrointestinal tract. It has been found that people who have exercised, you won't believe this, have 50% of the colon cancer rate than people who don't exercise. And it's partly related because many of them become overweight because they don't exercise, and fat really has inflammatory factors in it that causes cancer. So exercise is very important for prevention of prostate cancer, uterine cancer, for breast cancer. Yes, if people exercise regularly, they'd have a 30% less chance of developing breast cancer. Then if you add on top of that eating the proper food, non-fat type diet, you pick up another 20-30%. So all breast cancer, colon cancer, 50% of it could be eliminated. Eating the right food, exercise regularly. And that is also true for a lot of skin diseases. A lot of skin diseases are due to stress. Exercise, remember what I said, reduces stress. And the less stress hormones you have in you, the less rashes you have, the less skin conditions that you have. Let's look at some metabolic disease, diabetes. Exercise is extremely important to diabetes. It is more important there probably than for any illness because why does exercise work? It reduces insulin resistance. Insulin resistance and obesity are the main cause of diabetes type 2, which is 90% of the diabetes that we're looking at. We have 30 million people in this country with type 2 diabetes, and 90% of it is caused by lack of exercise and by being overweight or obese. All that can be stopped, prevented, and reversed by exercising regularly. And diabetics should exercise, frankly, twice a day because it improves the insulin resistance and reduces inflammation in the body and improves the immunity, which is part of the diabetic condition. So let's get down to the exercises themselves a bit. What kind of things do we medically recommend? You would think you got to be a marathon runner. Heck no. Matter of fact, that type of exercise is harmful to wellness for the average person to do that. We're talking about much more benign type of exercise, not hard to do, and I'm going to have Brian review that. But let's start, first of all, with 10 exercise myths. What are false beliefs that we have about exercise, Brian? How about going through these with me? This is, I think, will be very interesting.
Sure. Number one, and these aren't in any particular order, you will burn more fat if you exercise longer at a lower intensity. A lot of people believe that the longer, slower duration exercises is what burns fat. And if you look at it when it comes to substrate purposes, yes, that's true. However, for fat loss, you're looking at long-term exercise. You're looking at higher intensity exercise, which incorporates more caloric burn. So you want a higher caloric burn that in the long run will burn more body fat than just the long, slower duration exercise. So it's not the percentage of body fat that's being burnt during exercise. It's the amount of calories being burnt totally during the exercise and then therefore afterwards. So you need to incorporate some kind of intensive interval training if it's cardiovascular, strength training, or both, a couple times during the week to really help keep the fat burning more efficiently than just slow cardio. And number two myth we have, if you're not going to work out hard and often, exercise is a waste of time. Some people believe, because they hear the hype, that you need to work out 30 minutes, 60 minutes every day. Most people can't do that. The diabetic population, most of these people really, they have a hard time just getting up from their chairs in their house. So all you have to do is just get up and move. Walk. Walking is probably the greatest exercise that there is. Most people can walk. That's all you have to do, and you're going to get a great benefit, a health benefit from just the walking part. So you don't have to look at exercises being extremely difficult in order for it to be effective for you. So don't ever let anybody tell you that working out hard is the way you need to go. Just start simply. Even if it's just 1 minute a day, if you haven't started at all, start 1 minute a day each week, add another minute of walking, and within a few months, in a year, you're going to be off to doing great things with your exercise program. Number three, your muscles get stronger during a strength training session. Now the key word here is during. When you're actually lifting weights, the goal is to break the muscle fibers down so that during the recovery stage, which is the 24 to 48 hours later, sometimes longer if you've worked the muscle really intense, you're going to need to replenish your glycogen storage, your protein storage in the muscle, and that only occurs during the rest phase, not during the actual strength training session. So if you're strength training every single day of the week, it's being counterproductive, and you want to, in fact, actually start breaking down muscle tissue, which is not what you want to do. So you need to lift your weight, recover through rest, 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours in between weightlifting sessions, fuel your body with proper nutrition, carbs, fat, protein, all the phytonutrients, vitamins, and minerals to help recover the muscle tissue, and then prepare you, which will adapt to the next workout session, which hopefully your muscles are therefore stronger to handle a heavier load. So that's number 3. Number 4, you should perform cardiovascular training before strength or resistance training for best results. If you don't do anything, obviously cardiovascular training and strength training in any order is a great thing. But if you're going to do both of them, do your strength training first. And this is after your warm-ups and your stretching. Do your strength training first and then do your cardiovascular training afterwards. The theory is if you're strength training, you need to have full capacity energy, glycogen storage, sugar storage in your muscles, in your liver to push a weight heavy enough to muscular fatigue yourself. If you don't have that energy because you expended it during cardiovascular activity, your strength training benefit is no longer there. So strength train. When you've burned the sugar from the muscle, go do the cardiovascular training afterwards. That will help kind of eat into the fat storage for fat burning, which is exactly what you want. And so strength training, cardio training in that order is really the better route to go. Number 5, a hot bath will prevent muscle soreness. If you are sore, and this is through acute injury, if it's from working out and you're sore the next day, and they call it the DOMS syndrome, D-O-M-S, delayed onset muscle soreness. When you experience soreness after injury, after working out intensively, you need to apply ice, the RICE method, the rest, ice, compression, elevation that you might have, maybe not have heard before. So rest the injured part, ice it for 15 minutes a few times during the day, compress it, so put a wrapping around it, and elevate it. Do that for 24 to 48 hours. Once the soreness has kind of gone away, then you can start adding the heat and the hot baths to loosen up that tissue. But when you're sore, you add ice, not hot. Number 6 is lifting weights will make you bulky. And now this is one of the biggest myths that are out there, especially for women. Women totally believe that if they lift heavy weights, and heavy weight training for them, it's not heavyweight training compared to a man. It's whatever a woman can lift. And both men and women are the same. What we recommend is 8 to 12 repetitions of a weight per body part where you go to muscular failure within that 8 to 12 repetitions. If women and men both do that, men who have more testosterone, because bulkiness is based on the hormone testosterone, men have 20 to 30 times more testosterone than women do. The only way women will ever get bulky, like a man, and most men don't get even bulky, is through artificial steroids. And as you see in muscle magazines and muscle building, those women and men that you see that are just enormously large muscles, they're huge, are from anabolic means. Women do not get bulky muscles, but you have to be willing to push weights around in order to strengthen up a muscle. Muscles are denser than body fat, so you actually shrink your body when you're lifting weights, which then metabolizes the body fat on your body. So you've got to be willing to push the weight. You will not put the muscle on, and that's a huge myth that women need to get over. If they start pushing these weights, you're going to see a big change in your body composition for the better. Number 7, finding exercises that burn the most calories are the best way for you to get results. Now, this is critical because when it comes to weight loss, the main thing that I tell people all the time is, because they always come to me and they watch these infomercials on TV, they see the Total gyms, they see the Nordic walking track things, whatever it might be, the Bowflexes. They ask me, are those good to use? Well, they're good to use if you're going to use them. For sustainable weight loss, you need to be willing to find something that you enjoy to do for the rest of your life. That is the key. So I tell them, do you like to walk? No. Do you like to run? Yes. Well, then start to run. You don't have to walk if someone tells you walking's better than running. If you're a swimmer, go swim. If you're a biker, go bike. If you like to do a combination of them, do a combination. It's finding the exercise that you love to do and sticking with it for the rest of your life, because that's how you maintain weight loss with the proper diet. It's not about treadmill burning more calories than the bike. Treadmill at a certain at a certain intensity, yeah, we'll probably burn more calories than a bike at a certain intensity, but if you're only going to do it one time because you don't enjoy doing it, it's not going to help you in your weight loss goals. So find the activity that you love to do and stick with it. Number 8, stretching before working out is crucial to preventing injury. Yes, it's very, very, very important to stretch, but we know now that if you do a general warm-up, which is jogging, maybe get on the treadmill, maybe biking, maybe doing some jumping jacks, that's your general warm-up for about 5 minutes. Get your heart rate going, get some sweat going, get your muscles and your tendons loosened up. Then you do a specific dynamic warm-up. This dynamic warm-up are exercises that are specific to the workout that you're going to do. If you're squatting for that day with heavy weights on your shoulders, you're going to do some squats for your dynamic warm-up, but with a very, very light weight. Preferably 50% of the weight you're going to do when you're actually working out. So a dynamic stretching, which is a dynamic warm-up before your workout, then you will then do your big stretching after your workout, which stretching is very critical for after the routine that you do. Number 9, doing crunches and ab workouts will get rid of belly fat. This is another huge myth that people still to this day think that if they do 1,000 crunches every day, they're going to get the six-pack abs. There's no such thing as spot training, which that's what it is. It's spot training. The body does not care where you are working, what muscles you're working to burn fat in that area. Your body will burn fat when you've expended more calories than you have taken in. So if you're doing cardio training, you're watching what you eat, and you're doing the proper strength training, your body will burn the calories, and over time, you will burn the fat off your belly in other areas, and then you'll be able to see the musculature underneath that body fat that you've been working at all this time. But 1,000 crunches is a waste of your time and your money, so you don't buy into those products that do that. It's the proper diet, proper exercise, burn the calories, you're going to see the muscles in your abdomen. And the last 10 myth that I have here, and there's plenty of other myths, these are 10 very popular ones that I have come up with. Bouncing while stretching will help warm up the muscles. Now, this is called ballistic stretching, which you never want to bounce down, up, for an example, when you touch your toes. To get a correct stretch in your muscles, you have to hold the stretch for at least 15 seconds, preferably 30 seconds, in some cases 60 seconds. If you're not stretching at least 15 seconds, it's not going to benefit the muscle itself. And so you must hold the stretch, preferably 2 to 3 sets per exercise of stretch, held for at least 15 seconds without bouncing is the way that you need to go. And this is for the person who has never exercised to the professional athlete. They all do this, and they all need to stretch this way. So those are my 10 exercise myths. And I guess back to Dr.
Yes,
Kessler.
thank you, Brian. That was excellent. But before I have you explain how to really do the exercises themselves, I'd like to ask you a little personal question, Brian. Now, I get my clothes off, I'm looking in the mirror, and I want to be able to see my muscles. Now, tell me again, Brian, what I got to do without taking steroids, which we both of us do not believe in at all, any anabolic products, because the dangers of taking these products. Brian, what I got to do to make it look like I got nice looking muscles? Brian, tell me.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and most people want to know how they can build the body that they want naturally. We all do. Now, first of all, you have to look at your genetics, which some people are bigger bone than others, and therefore you can put more muscle on your body naturally than other people. And there's 3 types of body types. You've got an ectomorph, a mesomorph, and an endomorph. Ectomorphs are thinner frame people who tend to be longer appendages. Those are the people that are thin, they got high metabolism, they can't put on a lot of muscle mass. Then you get the mesomorphs, who tend to be more the stockier, muscular people who tend to be more the sprinters and jumpers and the powerful athletes. They could put on more musculature, but they also can put on a little bit more body fat easily. And then you have the endomorphs, which are more the higher body fat percentage of people, which quite frankly make up about 25%, maybe 30% of our population, and it is rising. Most people are endomorphs in this case. So if you want to get the body that genetically you're able to reach, it's got to come from many different sources. 80% of it's going to come from your diet, what you are eating and when you are eating, and that's critical. Most people, if they're eating simple sugars, the high glycemic index foods cause insulin to dump in your blood, and insulin is a growth hormone. If you've got insulin dumped in your blood system, you're going to store fat when you're not burning it, and that is critical if you want to burn the fat to look at the muscle that you're building when you're lifting weights. Lifting weights are the other side of the equation after the diet. And the diet is consuming the right amount of protein, which typically is probably 12 to 20% of your calories are good quality sources of protein. Carbohydrates, 50 to 55, in some cases 60%, depending on the sources of carbohydrate, preferably in the complex form. and fat about 30%, preferably in the monounsaturated fats, the omega-3 fatty acids, which we are very much lacking in this country. You consume the diet with all the proper nutrition, with proper resistance training. And when you add resistance training with cardio training and the eating, it all gives you the best chance of you reaching your goals. And with the resistance training, you want to focus on 2 to 3 days a week of a full body resistance training program if you're starting off. A full body, major muscle groups, finding a weight that you can do 8 to 12 repetitions where that weight is you fail at that weight at 12 but no less than 8. Once you can do that same exercise, 12 repetitions in 2 consecutive workouts, then it's time for you to go up on weight. That's how you know when you progressively overload your muscle. And that's the key. Don't stick and do the 5-pound weight for the first year of lifting. Your goal is lift 8 to 12 repetitions, minimum of 8 with that weight, maximum 12. And you can do 2 workout sessions of 12 repetitions with that 5-pound weight. The next day you come in for your weight training session, which is not 2 days in a row. Remember when I said you have to recover. You're going to go up to 7 pounds or 10 pounds on that weight. And once again, you're going to focus on trying to get to failure within 8 to 12 repetitions. That is critical for muscle definition, for muscle strength, for muscle building, and therefore fat burning. Because when you put muscle on your body, 1 pound of muscle is 50 to 80 calories a day to keep that muscle active. So if you put 50 to 80 calories a day in a year's time, that's body fat that you're losing just keeping that muscle on your body. So it's critical that you need to lift weights 2 to 3 days a week. You need to watch what you eat, and obviously your genetics will determine, how you're going to get to the goal that you're striving. And not everybody's going to be the scrawny 5% body fat person, but you can definitely change your body composition by doing those things.
Thank you very much, Brian. This is very interesting. Things I'd like to review a little bit too about the eating, because we teach that at the Mind Body Institute. We run 2 very large proper eating classes. We don't call it diet classes. It's food selection. And what he's really saying is, and what we generally teach on averages, it's about a 20% protein diet, but the protein should be from plants. The best proteins are from plants. The proteins from meat have cholesterol and fats with them. And generally, personally, I like to keep the fat diet around 20%, unless you exercise really at a high rate and can burn off more fat than that. So it was very interesting for you to say that really to have this good-looking muscle, am I right, Brian? It's what we eat is the most important thing.
Yeah, eating is by far the most...
Contrary to what you would think.
Absolutely. Eating is by far the most important. Yeah. People who just work out, for example, who hire personal trainers, they typically would train twice a week with a personal trainer. There's 168 hours in a week. Yeah. That's 2 hours of the week that they're training with a trainer, and they assume the trainer's going to change their body totally in a different way, when the other 166 hours of the week they're on their own. They're not watching what they're eating. Yeah. No one's in control of that. No one's helping them with that. And therefore they don't really see the results that they need, because it really does become to this, it comes down to the behavior modification of how you eat, what you're eating, when you're eating, doing all these things rather than just the actual training itself.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. This is critical. I'd like to repeat it again. Right now in the advertisements and the media, what we're looking at all the time, these great looking abs. And I'm looking at this and thinking, geez, these people are really working out. They're carefully working out with their mouths. They're eating the right food. Plus they're doing obviously some weight training. Very interesting point. I'm glad I raised that question. Next, Brian, could you explain to me really on the average for most of these medical conditions, and what the people should do? I think is really the same for most of them.
Right.
For example, but I want you to tell them how to do this. For example, I think majority recommendations that we make today is to walk at least 3 to 4 days a week, 30 to 90 minutes of plain walking. Interval training where you walk fairly rapidly, slow it down a little bit, speed it up a little bit, seems to be actually been proven scientifically to be the most effective. You would agree with that, Brian?
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be one. And then we need, as you mentioned in your myths here, we need some aerobic training for the best calorie burn. Mm-hmm. And remember, while you're doing some of these activities, and just think of it, that if you increase your muscular strength and you get, suppose you gain 5 pounds of muscle over the next 3 to 4 months, that each pound of muscle every day burns 80 calories a day without you even using the muscle. So you're burning off 300 or 400 calories a day without you moving that muscle. That results in weight loss. I mean, you add it up. To lose 1 pound of weight, you need to burn up about 3,500 calories, which you could do by eating 200 or 300 less calories per day, which might be one dessert, for example, and exercise, walk for half hour, an hour. That comes another 200, 300 calories, and you're going to lose a pound a week, guaranteed. Very interesting. But start at the beginning now. And we're set on this aerobic. And also the walking, which is really aerobic exercise, and you can speed it up a little, that's fine, but it's not necessary. We're going to do strength training. But take us through this. How does a person need to start in the home? Tell us about warm-ups and strength training, all these things. What's the procedure, Brian?
Yeah, and it really comes down to, if I was going to talk to somebody who has, maybe they're diabetic, or just in any special population, health population, what they need to do, I would first have to check their medical background and make sure they have a medical release from their doctor that they can exercise. The way it's going to start is you will, through the exercise standpoint, you do a general warm-up with that person. So these people are going to be doing a basic little walk, very easy. They might... maybe they get on a stationary bike and they do a little stationary bike for a few minutes. So you do your general warm-up. That's for everybody. That's from special population to an Olympic athlete. Then you go into the specific warm-up, which is mimicking the exercises that you're going to do for the workout. That's another 5 minutes or so. Then you will do a strength training session with these people. If you do both of them on the same day, the strength training and the cardio, for most people, I'm going to say go out and walk. Some people use the walking as their warm-up prior to their strength training. I would recommend them after the warm-up, do strength training in their home twice a week, a full body, grab some light dumbbells. You can use bands. You can use anything from your home, from empty milk cartons, just fill them up with water evenly and use those as your weights each week. As you get stronger, every 2 weeks or so, you just add more water. Twice a week, do a full body routine with all the major muscle groups, doing one set of each of 8 to 12 repetitions so that they are hitting that close to that muscular failure within the 8 to 12 repetitions, but they need the 2 sessions a week. Sometimes they'll get up to 3 as they get going. They'll go up to 3 times a week. And then walk. The ACSM recommendation is most days of the week, preferably 30 to 60 minutes of some kind of cardiovascular, which is aerobic activity per week. And if you're starting off, you're going to start off about 50 to 60% of your maximum heart rate. And a maximum heart rate is just a simple number. It's the number 220 minus your age. And you multiply that number by the percentage of intensity that you are going to perform your cardiovascular exercise. In this case, for someone who has never exercised before, they're diabetic, they're overweight, I'm going to recommend them doing 50 to 60% of this maximum heart rate number for their duration of their 20 minutes, their 30 minutes. But maybe they can't even do 10 minutes. Well, I'm going to suggest that they do maybe 2 minutes multiple times during the day to try to get up to that 20 minutes or that 30 minutes. And that's just as effective as actually doing the full 20 or 30 minutes in that day. So my goal with them is to get them moving, trying to accumulate 20 to 30 minutes a day of a walking activity. It's moderate activity, around that 50 to 60%. As they get in better shape, their better fitness level, they're going to go up in that percentage, 65, 70%. And still the strength training is going to be there 2 to 3 times a week, full body. Goal is 8 to 12 repetitions. Once they hit 12 in 2 consecutive sessions, they're going to increase their weight. And then after the weight training session, if they have not already done their walking, maybe they did it before, then you'll definitely do a major stretching session where it will be a full body stretching, which will take anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on how sore you are in weak areas or tight areas. So it's going to be similar across the board from someone who's never gotten up from the couch into a professional athlete. It's just going to be different intensities of exercise that differ between the two populations.
Thank you, Brian. That was very interesting in how important it is. You know, in today's Western society that we're looking at, we're starting to look at a lot of children that are overweight. The cholesterol is elevated in 60% of the teenagers. You won't believe it. We have got 1/3 of the children today overweight. But people forget, heart disease begins at age 4. 4. The first symptom in a diabetic of heart disease is that angina, arm pain, arm numbness, shortness of breath, sudden death. Sudden death. So it's extremely important, especially in type 2 diabetics, to get involved with exercise. We are doubling the type 2 diabetic in our nation every 10 years. I mean, the bad health coming down the line, the cost involved for our government and the people themselves and the suffering is going to be tremendous. The diabetic, on the average, removes 20 years from their life. They have amputations, they become blind, they have sudden unexpected heart attacks, skin disease. Almost every third patient that I see has type 2 diabetes. It's sadness. In the majority of these patients, people have no living idea what the mad, sad, toxic American diet is. There's been very little education in the schools, and I think in the medical profession are clearly guilty. Because I found when I spent a lot of time with these patients, unfortunately I saw 3 or 4 of these the other day, but fortunately in the sense they came to see me. Instead of talking about the back trouble they came to see me about, I spoke to them about wellness. And if you spend enough time with them, they indeed will try to do something about it, because they went over to Mind Body Institute, which is half a mile through the hospital away, and they showed up to look at my DVDs and to sign up for my classes, because they realized I loved them. I spent a lot of time with them, and I educated them. So when my wife was at a Christmas party recently, I couldn't make it because I was operating, and the doctor was asking about my Mind Body Institute, and I told him my disappointment that I didn't really see enough physician referrals there compared to the people coming in. And there was a comment that was made that the people don't really care to get well. I disagree with that. People want to get well. Brian, they want to get well. But you have to educate them. They have to know why they need to get well, and they need to motivate them. And speaking about that, I gave a lecture on this subject, frankly, to the State Chiropractic Association. And one of the chiropractors then stood up and says, "That's fine, Dr. Cashman, you give us all this health information. You talk about exercise and proper eating and stress reduction. But how do you motivate somebody?" Well, that's a good point. Now, I think I'm fairly motivating because people realize I really care about them. That's a good start. But I got to the point, I wrote a book, and it just came out. It'll be on Amazon, and I like to hold it up. Secrets of Motivating Yourself to Wellness. Believe me, how to make money in selling books. But it's very informational, 30 chapters, and how to motivate yourself to wellness. I think it might be worthwhile for people to look at if they have trouble getting off that couch and getting this exercise program going. Dean Ornish published many books years ago, 15 years or more, on stopping, preventing, and reversing heart disease. I had a patient recently, a few years ago, that was going to need a heart transplant. He just didn't want to have it done. And I could see the point. If I was facing that, I'm not sure I'd have it done. And I mean, that's a lot to do to your body, and to mentally to accept it. So I gave him the work of Dean Ornish. He read it, gave him a DVD, and Max Honeywell, 15 years later, he doesn't mind me using his name, I know, from Marion, Indiana, sent me a picture recently, and he's standing on top of a roof building houses at age 76. So, in other words, to do something about your medical condition is extremely important. Heart disease is stoppable, preventable, reversible. Dean Ornish said it. I agree with it. And it's backed up by work of Esseltine, Dr. Furman, and Dr. John McDougall, all people who've given courses in heavy duties, and I've read all their books, attended their lectures. I'm totally convinced of it. So, but exercise is a strong component. And we were speaking about the children. For them, it's even much more important that you pick an exercise that they like, just like for the adults. Pick an exercise they like. What I like the most? Tennis. I play tennis all the time. But besides that, I do yoga twice a week. And I make a point to do the walking that we talked about at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And I do some gentle weightlifting with the reps that you spoke about. And you know, recently I've been hearing about forms of exercise that are very effective for the elder, like body recall is something I've heard about. Another one I heard about, I went to a meeting last week, Dr. Furman, Eat to Live, Dr. Furman, a very famous book he wrote about proper eating. And I learned from a doctor there a program of, it's called super effort, where people use really almost 80% of what they can lift. For example, if they can lift 20 pounds, they will then pick 80% of that and have them really work the muscle to exhaustion, to total exhaustion, to create that muscle burn. And they do it maybe twice a week. And the doctor was telling me that he's incredibly strong now. So these are interesting concepts. What do you think about those things I mentioned?
No, what Doctor was talking about is this 80% is based on the 1 repetition maximum. It's called an RM, which is repetition maximum. When you're talking about strength training, you're talking about how many numbers of reps of the weight you can move within its full range of motion. In this case, he's talking about, for example, a 20-pound dumbbell. If you're doing a curl, 80% of your 1 rep max, which means you will find out how much weight you need to do in order to be able to lift 1 time to failure, and you cannot lift 2 reps. So a repetition is 1 complete motion of a weight from up or down. 1 repetition maximum, 20 pounds. 80% of that will be 16 pounds now that you are lifting through into that failure. And usually at 80%, you're usually failing around 8 to 12 repetitions. So that is totally, in theory, correct so far in exercise science. That's what we are taught to work with our clients based on this 1 repetition maximum and taking a percentage of that. 80% tends to be the best repetition percentage that will build the most muscle, build the most strength, and therefore burn the most calories. So that 80% of that 1 rep max is a great theory. It's a great concept. It works across the board for all populations.
Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, this doctor really bragged about, and he seemed a very honest individual, how the tremendous strength he had achieved just on those, fairly light weights that he was using. And I met a very interesting gentleman there, the president of Whole Foods, and I thought that was very interesting. And he was going to grade all the foods in his supermarket with aggregate nutrient density scores, so that you knew when you went to the supermarket how healthy your food is. And you know what happened to his sales on the healthy foods of salads and kales and tomatoes? Went up 20%. It exploded. So I think we as a nation, are starting to change a little bit. I formed here the mind-body index, which is on my left and your right, which are illnesses caused by stress, which is probably 75% of the people that come to see a doctor in the office. That's what they got. And what in medicine do we do a lot of times to these patients? We inject them. We give them medications, we give them narcotics, and we don't teach them healthy habits. These are illnesses caused by the human mind. How you think in wellness is extremely important. Your 70 trillion cells in your body, your brain speaks to them through hormones and neurotransmitters and neuropeptides, something I think Medicine Journal doesn't really appreciate. So how you think really is everything. But part of stress reduction is exercise. And exercise, as I mentioned before, is as good as taking a Prozac. It reduces depression, reduces anxiety, and stimulates us. A number of chemicals in the blood which help turn the appetite off. For example, if you're overeating on a regular basis, if you were to exercise 10, 15 minutes beforehand, it'd secrete the chemicals of food, serotonin, endorphins. Many of us are psychological eaters. Food is a drug. It's a drug. I've experienced it myself. I had a very stressful few days in neurosurgery. You can see that's not uncommon. I started eating the wrong food. And then you say to yourself, my God, I could have possibly have done that. And we're seeking serotonin, which is secreted by food. Even just looking at a food can cause secretion of serotonin. But if you exercise more, you secrete endorphins, and you feel a lot better when you sit down to the table. Your much less likely to overeat. It's very interesting. Then I formed, after the Mind-Body Index, recently I formed the Longevity Mind-Body Index, which is to your right, my right, to the audience's left. An interesting concept. You can find it on my webpage. If you go to my webpage, cashmanmindbody.com, and there's a brain on the left side, you hit the brain. Interesting enough, you hit the brain. And the next page is all about memory. Tremendous detail on how to keep a sharp memory through your life and how important that is. So then I have listed here about 20 things you can do to keep a sharp memory. I mean, sort of instinct. I've read an awful lot about it and try to practice these things. And what's on top of it is proper eating. Proper eating. Remember I said that really leads the way. And to have good-looking muscles, what did we say? Proper eating. Interesting. And but it's also the number one on keeping a sharp memory, eating the right food. Fat is destructive through chemicals to the human mind. It makes the brain cells more sticky, the neurotransmitters more sticky, and patients with type 2 diabetes, patients who are overweight, have an increased rate of dementia. Advanced dementia, some people call it Alzheimer's disease. I don't know if I agree with that, but let's say advanced dementia, or memory loss in general, is much higher in people who are overweight. So exercise is number 2 under my Longevity Mind-Body Index. How critical that is. So exercise is extremely important. Exercise has been very effective in the elderly, 60s and 70s. As the years go by, we lose muscular strength about 2, 3, 5% a year. Especially if you're sitting around, it'd be much higher. So it becomes more important to exercise as we get older. For one thing, it helps prevent falls. We have something called sarcopenia, which means body muscle weakness, which is the common cause of osteoporotic fractures. We all think it's lack of calcium and osteoporosis that causes all these compression fractures. That's not the real cause of it. I heard Dr. Furman say it last week at the course I took with him. It's sarcopenia, loss of muscular strength. So to keep a strong muscular girdle as we get a day older becomes extremely important. And women have osteoporotic fractures 3 times more common than men. Within 3 years of having an osteoporotic vertebral compression fracture, where the vertebra compresses, which causes significant pain, for some people, frankly, horrible pain, that has a 30% death rate attached to it. Within 2 or 3 years, 30% of the people who had a compression fracture died. So it becomes very important to avoid sarcopenia, to keep these muscles strong. And I personally think, first of all, we should all exercise, but especially as we get older, maybe we have a little bit more time to regularly join a sports club, the Y, or whatever, personal trainer like yourself, group training that we have to keep costs low, for example. And personal training is extremely important for good physical health. And remember what I said, exercise is 4 times more important for the human brain than the body. Very interesting. The other things in my Longevity Mind-Body Index, which is very interesting, is education. You need to keep yourself educated. Use your brain. You fire it and you wire it. It wires your brain. People who are educated read regularly and play cards and things of this nature, which is all on my website. I've got Pogo on there. You can play games and cards and board games for 6 months without playing the same game. It's all on my website, all free. Those things are all free. And I've listed the things that will keep your brain sharp. A very important page, a thing to look at. All types of websites. You can download music and art and all sorts of things to keep a sharp mind, because I want to keep you healthy in the body, but also in the brain. I mean, what good is it to be 100 if you don't have a good brain? So you can indeed be 100 years old and have a sharp brain, but you got to work at it. You can't, like many of us, sit there and watch ball games and be passive. I mean, don't watch television. Be your own television. Let the people look at you. I don't want to hear if Johnny Sewer passed for a touchdown. I want to know if my grandchild made a touchdown or I played with them, or the other day that I played, on Father's Day, I played baseball with a tennis ball with my grandson. and my little dog Zoe was in the audience playing the outfield. I mean, it was a beautiful day. So to do things with the children yourself, but pick a sport that you love. I mean, like I said, I love tennis. You might enjoy golf. You might enjoy walking. You may enjoy dancing. For 2 years, I took dance lessons, and unfortunately, the Russian instructor left town, and that was really a good way to stay physically fit and learn new things. I think is extremely important, and learn techniques of stress reduction. I think stress reduction is extremely important for good health. We have a very stressful society. Very stressful society. The TV, the texting, the job, the economy, people getting fired, getting $800 a month from Social Security, and they expect you to live on it to give me a break. I mean, that's impossible. And these things, we're under very stressful times. But regular exercise helps keep the mind together. I think to learn some mind-body techniques, meditation. What's meditation? Meditation is bringing yourself into the moment. Meditating is doing the dishes and looking at the dishes. If you're paying attention to what you're doing, that's meditation. Don't look at the tsunami of the past or the storm of the future. Think of the present moment. That is, frankly, called meditation. In our follow-up DVDs from what we're doing today, programs, we're going to go to very specific exercises. We're going to do a DVD on stretching. We're going to then do one on weight training so that you know some of the details. Remember, we're not educating marathon runners here. These are meant for the average individual like myself to keep ourselves mentally and physically healthy. We look at all aspects of training for wellness. And frankly, if you eat properly, stress reduction, you keep your mind sharp on things. For example, on my webpage, the majority of us can lead a normal life. And life has a beginning and a life has an end. But we can avoid all the illnesses that I look at every day. For example, at the hospital, I would say 90% of these illnesses that I'm looking at are self-inflicted, Brian. They're self-inflicted. I think you would agree with that. It's from eating the wrong food, from not exercising, to be overly stressed and not focusing on our family or on our job. And I think to attend some college classes, for example, if you're retired or if you're not busy, is important. I tell you a great book to read about health and getting a day on is Jack LaLanne's book. He just came out with a book recently. You know, realize he's 96 years old, sound mind, sound body. Yep. I mean, and a great book to read. And he, in it, also goes through stretching and weightlifting. But you know, he's got one chapter in there which I loved, and I put it into my books. Don't retire. Don't retire. That's fine. You get a job you don't like, you retire from that. But immediately give yourself 2 weeks off. That's your retirement. Go to do something else. People ask me, when are you going to retire, doctor, occasionally. And I always tell them, I'll have my retirement party the day after I die. You know, I'm exactly 39 years old, but I'll be honest with you, I'm having a ball. I'm just having a ball. I work like a dog and do music and yoga and Tai Chi. And I think the point I'm proving, I'm not naturally good at anything. I think that I'm proving is the resilience of the human body. And I keep on reminding myself that physical training of weightlifting and exercise is very important. And I do it almost to extremes, Brian. And what's your experience, Brian, with people that you train? Are you able to motivate them and to continue to do what they do, or are they like some of the 50% of the cardiac patients who are facing death, many of them, and maybe 50% of them don't continue with the program, which concerns me a great deal, and I worry about that, and I think we should work on that. And as a matter of fact, Lutheran Hospital has invited me to work on that, and I thank them for that. Matter of fact, they invited me to write out a program for every patient that left the hospital, except for maybe the terminally ill or something, to outline something for them for wellness. And here we have a hospital system willing to do that, and you have to compliment them for that. That's a change in medicine, you know. What's your experience in motivating people, Brian?
You know, it's kind of like you said, it's still, even when the services are there that I offer, it is since exercise and weight loss and becoming healthy is a lifelong process, still you see about half the population drop out. So those numbers are correct. And but it's interesting, at least in in a lot of the classes that I teach, my special populations, like my diabetic clients and participants in the classes, they are actually seeing results with their insulin dependency. They're actually going off insulin. They're losing weight. They're seeing results from their standpoint, which is a health standpoint. So they're actually staying on board with the exercise programs, as compared to those people who are just into exercise for the aesthetic reasons, which is to look this perfect kind of Barbie doll type stature is what they're going for. Those are the people that really tend to, when they start, kind of back away, because then they realize, you know, this really isn't going to happen for me. But it's a very difficult thing to work with people and get them to realize that, you know, we can only do so much for them. And so I think where training is going in the future is more coaching. And just like Doctor was saying, we're working on a program where we actually will coach patients who, before they leave the hospital, and put them through a program where they can change their own behaviors so that they can take charge of their own health without having to rely on going to somebody else to tell them what they need to do and what they need to eat and that sort of thing. That will be the future of wellness when everybody goes on board who's being coached. And coached is away from the actual physical training side of it, which is extremely important, but actually getting these people to realize that they can make the change for themselves. And that's where I'm trying to go with my clients now. And yes, the physical training is important, but I let them know it's not necessarily the actual program that they're doing that's important. It's actually showing up and doing it, but actually sustaining, and that comes from within them. And we're always working on ways to kind of keep them motivated, like some of the diabetic people who know that they see benefit from exercise, and so that is their motivation. They stick on board, they stick on board, they stick on board. And so the coaching aspect is the way I'm trying to hit my clients and participants in classes, and it tends to kind of be a better kind of success rate of keeping people, you know, retained in classes and keeping up with their exercise program.
Thank you very much, Brian. And that's my point of my book. I mean, what does it say at the bottom right here? I mean, I'm your coach now. I'm the psychological coach to try to help motivate you, Brian, and then we send you to the real coach, the physical coach, with you to complete the process. At the Furman meeting, instantly enough, in San Diego just now, which was about proper eating, there were 5 people there from Fort Wayne, a larger representation than from anywhere in the country. We had more people there than people in San Diego sent there. Yeah, I mean, it costs a little bit to be there, obviously, but and I thought that was interesting, that a community is indeed willing to change. And one of the people there who was given some lectures at this library, I won't mention her name because I don't know, maybe she would care, maybe not, but she has lost 100 pounds, was about starting diabetes, and the pictures of her on Furman's site, actually, testimonial pictures, so those are public. And she's lost 100 pounds, and I'll be honest with you, she looks like a movie star now. So, as we mentioned before, remember with the muscles, but you get that, it's not just weight, she works out too, but she's eating the right food. She eats a high, dense nutrient foods with color to them, not meat and fat and cheese. And she has a beautiful body. I tell you, I bet you Elizabeth Taylor looks no better than her. At her stated age 50. Tremendous change. You can see it on the website. So it's also about physical beauty. It's also about muscular beauty. And that's a real step to wellness that she took. And she's going to be, told me when I was in San Diego, she's going to be a motivating speaker for us at our Mind Body Institute, which is very interesting. We have a number of products to educate people. Really, I'm an educator. That's really what I am. I'm a wellness doctor. Obviously, I'd make a lot more money doing surgery. wellness teaching doesn't pay very well. I really don't care. I'm trying to get people well. And so but we have a number of products to help educate people. We have now CDs that people can play in their radio. They're quite effective. You know, that people, that's time they normally would waste anyway. It's almost better than a DVD, I've been told. That, you know, on the way to Chicago, they need to do something to listen to. So they play some of our CDs. We also have DVDs that are available on subjects. The mind and cancer. Yes, the mind can have a tremendous effect on doubling your lifespan in cancer, based on the work of Dr. LaShan, famous book. Stress reduction, visualization techniques can double your lifespan with cancer. We have a DVD on that. So cancer is affected by your mind and also by exercise. Half of breast cancer, frankly, I truly myself believe, and I support in the literature, half the breast cancer can be eliminated by eating the proper high-dense nutrient foods to prevent it. And also, once you got it, it's very important. LaShan has a story in his book where he walked a lady with metastatic breast cancer through the Museum of Art in New York, close to where I used to live, for once a month. That was her. He had lunch, and then had a look at her favorite art for a half hour. 5 years later, restudied it, no breast cancer. So these things, in certain cases, work even for cancer. I have DVDs on reduction of stress, on motivation, on smoking cessation. I've written 2 books about proper eating. The Secret of the Non-Diet for adults. I have a Secret of the Non-Diet for children. Within 6 to 8 weeks, I have a book come out, Reversing Type 2 Diabetes in 60 days. Would you believe it? I think it's true. I talked to Dr. Furman about it. He has a book coming out on it also. And I don't think, not naming the days necessarily, but Franklin House published a book, The 30-Day Miracle. 30 years he's been doing it, reversing type 2 diabetes in 90 days. So a combination, of course, of high nutrient type eating, which is exactly what House recommends, exactly what we teach, and exercise. He has a huge chapter on exercise in there, stressing exercise a great deal. And now we'll have DVDs on stretching and exercise. And tell us a little bit, Brian, about services that you yourself offer.
Yeah, at the Institute, I do a variety of exercise classes. I do personal training, which is one-on-one. I do group training, which is personal training, but for small groups of under 6 people. I do an advanced boot camp for the extreme, the person who wants to really lose those last 10 pounds. I do a really popular class called the Strength and Stretch, and that's a class for the general population that tends to be the elderly, fibromyalgia type people, and that is a great popular class. And we work on basic stretching and basic strength training exercises. Half the class is in a chair, but my goal is to get them from the chair up to a standing position and doing just basic body weight type exercises with some cardio and some core training, because my goal with this class is to really get people functional again so that they're up from the couch, they're up and they're moving. Classes that are ranged from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and they're cardio strength training classes, body toning classes, any types of class that deal with fitness. And you can get a hold of me at the 436-2040 phone number at the Cashman Institute.
Thank you very much, Brian. I enjoyed doing this with you. And in essence, really, we're trying to get you to live to be 100 and to be perfectly intelligent when you're there, avoiding the majority of the illnesses that out there today. 90% of the Americans, unfortunately, eat the mad, sad, toxic American diet, and they don't exercise. We're working on changing that, and we have seen many good results. And wonderful. Even today, I was standing outside the library here, just waiting to cross the red light. Huge traffic going by. 6 people stuck their head out of the window, and I say, "Hi, Dr. K." So I know we're getting somewhere. I must say, I really enjoyed doing this program with you, and looking forward to our next DVD. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.